Saskatchewan tabled its budget yesterday with a small surplus and a bigger debt. But the finance minister admits tariffs from the US and China could blow up his plan and trigger a recession. Yet, Jim Reiter did not set aside money for the potential impact of tariffs. So here to weigh in on that and more is our public affairs panel. Dale Richardson is principal at Earnscliffe Strategies. Hi, Dale.
Hi.
And Jack Saddleback is a professional speaker, and he joins me here in Saskatoon. Hi, Jack.
Hello.
I start with your overall impressions of this budget, and then we'll get into specifics. Dale, starting with you, what's the message that you take away from this budget?
Yeah, I mean, I think with everything going on in the world, including tariffs, and there was a lot of focus on tariffs yesterday. I think the ultimate message is that the government is doing what it said it would do, which is delivering for people in this province when it comes to healthcare and education and policing and community safety. Definitely doesn't hurt that the budget is balanced or at least a very small surplus. I think in the face of tariffs, I think it was a very, very strong budget.
But Dale, I just want to follow up right here there.
Yep.
You said that there's a message that's been delivered, but unlike some other provinces, Saskatchewan did not create a contingency fund for the potential impact of tariffs. The finance minister says the situation is too unpredictable, but I'm wondering, Dale, by not creating a contingency fund, what kind of message, what kind of impression does that leave for the people here? For me, it's almost like it's not. We are not preparing for this, and we may not support businesses and workers who might be affected.
No, I think that's a long bow to draw. I can't imagine a scenario where, if there was a significant deficit that was created because of the tariffs. I think the government pegged the tariff impact at potentially $1.4 billion. I think that's a worst case scenario. I can't imagine that the government wouldn't respond with significant measures similar to what they did during the pandemic, which I think would be not a direct comparison, but very similar. In that situation, the finance minister. She announced a budget in March of 2020, and then, I think 6 weeks later, she had to deliver basically a whole new budget because of the pandemic. So I don't think because this year that the government didn't build in a contingency plan because they don't know what will happen with tariffs. We don't know if it'll be 3 days of tariffs or 3 months or 3 years. But if that does happen, I would be extremely shocked and surprised if the government didn't respond with significant measures.
Jack, what's your overall impression of this budget?
Well, I think we can all agree that it is a really challenging thing to talk about, especially with the uncertainty. And we're hearing that across the board here. We're even hearing it on the street level where folks are wondering what can we look forward to and what can we even plan when we have this looming threat of a bully nation coming after us with this tariff and especially global tariff threat that's happening in April. When it comes to the Saskatchewan budget, I do agree with Dale. It feels like low ball. We did what we said we were going to do, and I like that. Okay. However, on the other side, I do have some qualms, especially when it comes to the aspects of social services, of healthcare, of education. For years, we've heard that there's chronic underfunding for these sectors, and we're seeing that, yes, there are increases, and kudos to the government of Saskatchewan for the slight increases that we've seen in some areas. But with this looming aspect that's happening with our American counterparts, it's challenging, and I do want to kind of give a little sympathy for the government of Saskatchewan in the current iteration, that they're trying their best. And I do recognize that maybe there are some discussions that are happening that we are not all privy to. However, I think that we should be able to know as the public that we have something on the horizon for us to give confidence to in our provincial government.
So you would say that they should have put a contingency fund down for the tariff situation? Is that what I hear?
I feel like we should get a little bit more of like it may or may not be there. You know, this idea of a contingency plan is not necessarily giving me the most confidence in what the Saskatchewan government can put forward.
I want to talk about something else, Dale. I'm going back to you. The finance minister says this is essentially a balanced budget. You mentioned that too. But how can you call it balanced, you know, when $2.5 billion is added to the debt, Dale?
Well, I'm not the finance minister, nor I was really terrible at math when I was in high school. But no, I mean, I think it's a pretty basic government accounting exercise where the operating expenses, as they estimate them to be for the upcoming year, the revenues are more than the expenses, and that's ultimately what it comes down to. I think when it comes to operating debt, I think a lot of that is held in capital expenditures. So, and that's long term. That's accumulated over quite a number of years. If there's a hospital being built and it takes 6 to 7 years to build that, I think that there's some debt that's involved in that. But I believe that's my understanding of it.
But wouldn't it ultimately be the taxpayers who end up paying the principal and interest on the debt? Yeah,
of course. And I mean, there are, I don't know of any governments in Canada, definitely at the federal level, provincial level, I don't know of any that don't carry some debt. I mean, and I think we talked about this last time, or maybe two shows ago with the Heritage Fund. It's a wonderful and a laudable goal to have no debt for any kind of government. But in this time that we're in, particularly when we're talking about tariffs, it's an interesting thing that goes on where critics of the government of any kind, particularly right now with the Sask Party, they're saying, why didn't you have a contingency plan for the tariffs, which would put the government not just into debt, but into a deficit for the year? But then they also criticize that the government has debt to pay off at the same time. So should the Sask Party government be doing one thing, or should it be doing the other? I think it's a bit confusing, this argument.
Jack, what do you think when it comes to the debt?
I too, Dale, am not a math aficionado. Maybe that's why I'm in sociology. Yeah. Just kidding. There are really good mathematicians in sociology. When it does come to the debt, it is a double-edged sword, and I do hear where you're coming from, Dale, where the criticisms on the government to be able to balance this budget, which we're looking at $12.1 million surplus, which is a very, very razor thin surplus for any sort of government in today's modern standards. What I would have liked to see leading up to this budget day was a little bit more collaboration and communication between the levels of government, and I do know that has happened in the past, but I do recognize right now in today's modern conflict time is that the NDP and the Sask Party could have sat down a little bit earlier to hash this out, to go over some of these numbers, to have discussions about should there be a tariff contingency, what does this look like, and is it something that's palpable to the rest of the citizens in the province here. I do want to circle back to the aspect that we got to have confidence within our government, and right now I have confidence that they want to make things better, but I need to see a little bit more transparency, because when there's too much power in one specific area, that being we have a majority government, a lot can go awry. And there are some conversations that could kind of hinder the larger federal government conversations. And by that, I mean, like even this morning, CKOM had put out an article that talked about the Governor's Coalition on Energy Security that the Alberta and Saskatchewan government actually just signed on to. So I think there just needs to be a little bit more transparency about what these plans are, how they're happening, who's involved. And then my confidence would be a little bit better.
Can I just jump in, Teresa?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, on the budgeting piece, I'm just not sure what Jack is saying. I mean, governments are elected. We had an election last fall. Sask Party government, they were elected to run this province, and we don't operate in a kind of a coalition government system like in Scandinavia, where we get a bunch of parties together and try and figure things out. If the NDP had won, they would have had full charge of putting together their budget. So, I mean, that's just how we operate in Canada.
Fair point, and I want to bring us back to the budget situation that this government brought out. And actually, Jack, you touched on that earlier in your first answer about you would like to see more in social services. And on the show today, we also talked about the overdose crisis that is here in Saskatoon. Once again, there's no money for supervised injection sites in the province. There has been a very high number of overdoses and also drug-related deaths recently. And today we are learning Saskatoon's prairie harm reduction is shutting down until the end of the month so staff can deal with the trauma it's been facing. Jack, what's your reaction to the government not funding safe injection sites?
As an individual and a community member that has worked in this field for a number of years, who has friends and by proxy family members who are dealing with frontline situations, whether or not they are substance users or whether or not they still work in the field, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see that the systemic challenges are due to the systemic policies that are put in place. The best evidence shows that we cannot focus on treatment alone. And unfortunately, this current iteration of the government is looking at treatment beds as being the save-all, catch-all for what's happening. We need to be able to have harm reduction strategies that keep people alive until they can get to said treatment beds. And it's frustrating to hear that the government for years has not and continues not, as we see within this budget, choose to recognize best practices that are happening in other cities and other countries for that matter.
Dale, with prairie harm reduction pausing its operations, we are in the middle of this overdose crisis here in Saskatoon. Do you think the government will be adjusting its strategy to deal with this crisis?
Well, just first and foremost, I mean, what's going on in Saskatoon for the last number of weeks with the serious spike in overdoses, it's very serious and really concerning to see. I had a friend who died of an overdose 10 years ago, more than actually, and I've written about him and I think about him often. And one of the things that I've concluded in my head is that his situation was, I think, similar to what has been going on lately in Saskatoon, where unfortunately people have been taking counterfeit fentanyl, or it's a mixture of things that they think that they're taking, and it turns out to be toxic for them. And my friend who died from an overdose, he would not have gone to a place like prairie harm reduction, just because he would not have been in that situation. It was a recreational drug that he was doing. So I think prairie harm does good work, no question about it. But to Jack's point, he's correct. The government in the last number of years, they have transitioned to focusing more on treatment as opposed to maybe the prairie harm approach, which is safe supply drugs, and that's the position that the government has been taking, and I don't see it changing going forward.
But I appreciate you sharing the story. Thank you very much for that. But still, prairie harm reduction is reporting overdoses they see and support. So what about those people who go there? Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that the government's intention is to directly target anybody. I think that their approach, and other provinces have pivoted to this approach. Alberta, next door, they have done this. Is that their approach is, again, I'll just say once again, their approach is treatment and not not endorsing, I guess, what they would consider safe supply or safe consumption sites as opposed to treatment beds. And again, I don't see that changing anytime soon.
I want to move on to another topic that seemed to have been very important for people in this province: cost of living. The finance minister titled this budget "Delivering for You." Does the budget deliver on addressing affordability this time? Dale, I'm starting with you.
Sure. I think it does. Going back to the election in the fall, the signature platform component for the Sask Party was affordability. So, and they're following through on this. I think their main thing is lowering personal income taxes in the province, which I think will take off 54,000 more people off the income tax rolls. That is direct savings for people in this province that they can keep a bit of money in their pocket. They've also introduced a number of tax credits. There's a home builder's tax credit, the graduate retention program, which I believe Jack and I have both benefited from in the past. We stayed in the province. We got a little bit of money for it. I think they're planning to increase that from $20,000 over 7 years to $24,000 over 7 years. So, there's quite a lot of savings for folks in this budget.
Jack, what do you see when it comes to affordability in this budget? I want to commend the minister for, I suppose, stating that, we want to be able to have your back on this regard. But circling back to our very first discussion here about the budget and some of the challenges that are taking place is right now, we can't really say how the impact is going to happen over this next 2, 3, to a whole year when we're looking at the financial situation of our province. What I will say is that our province and our city and our communities that we all live in, I think, have a collective understanding that there's a lot of uncertainty. It feels tumultuous, and folks are a little worried about how far their dollar is going to stretch. When we're looking at affordability within this particular budget, certainly there are some wins with the 2%, coming back to the social services side of things, with the 2% bump to SIS and SED, which are the social services programs. That 2% bump isn't necessarily going to get anyone far who's already living under poverty. When it comes to folks who are not necessarily living in poverty, we're still in a very gray time. And as much as I want to give my commentary on this or some insights, all I can say is hang tight, folks, and consider giving where you can, giving to charities, giving to the food bank, because there are some people who are struggling, and they're struggling silently. And we just want to recognize that as we move forward with tariffs and other discussions, that we're all going to get through this. It's not the first time we've gone through a Trump administration. It's not going to be the well, I hope it's the last time we go through a Trump administration. It should be the last.
I also hope so.
Oh my God. It should be from unless there's some major changes. But let's not talk about that. But let's talk about Canada as a whole before I let the two of you go, because we also have, or let's just say, a federal election call is expected for Sunday. Jack, what will you be watching for in the first couple of days once the election has been called?
Ooh, so this is exciting because some of the candidates in areas haven't necessarily been solidified just yet. So for this to pop off on Sunday, I'm very keen on seeing who's stepping up and which parties. I think in the province here, for the most part, we seem to have candidates in most parties already in place. What I would be looking at is outside of our province. What does that liberal conservative sort of hash out that's going to take place? How is that going to look? In our province, it typically will be between the Conservatives and the NDP, for folks who know, and it's actually the northern seats that I would be keeping a keen eye on.
Yeah, there's some interesting developments in the last polls I looked at. Dale, what's your take on the potential or expected call on Sunday and what you'll be watching for?
Yeah, it definitely seems to be closer now. Now that Mark Carney is the Prime Minister and Justin Trudeau is gone, I'm going to be watching for. I think that there's going to be, maybe a single moment in this campaign, and I don't know when that will be or what will happen exactly, but I have a feeling that there's going to be a moment that where the campaign is going to shift, and it's going to people are going to shift their support towards. I'm not sure which party, to be honest, but there's going to be that kind of singular moment where it's going to be a major game changer. So I'll be watching for that. But it's exciting times.
Dale, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Jack, thanks to you.
Thank you.